You like comics? You bet we do. How about artwork? Yeah, we fucking love that too. You like movies? Whether they are old or new. How about streaming? We watch that fucking shit, it's true. But it's comic book art that gets us all fired up for the all-time great. So let's buckle up. Hear me out, I'ma tell you how it all goes down on the Blacklist Underground.
Welcome to the Blacklist Underground, brought to you by Ideal Organic CBD, starring our favorite artist, Zach Howard. Hello, Zach.
Hello.
Zach,
Hello.
as we all know, is the creator of the hit series Wild Blue Yonder, as well as illustrator of The Cape, Hellboy, Judge Dredd, TMNT, and too many others to mention. I am your host, enthusiastic comic book aficionado, J.C. Washburn. And each episode, we choose a comics legend to ink a drawing of. And this week's giant who's getting blacklisted is none other than the king of comics, Jack Kirby.
Yay! Yeah, Jack.
I sounded angry. Zach, hit us up with our Patreon blacklisters this week.
All right, we even got a new one here. So we're going to go upside down. Damon Smith, Clara Meath. I didn't know Clara Meath. She's on one of our shows. How is that possible? That's like that podcastception. Max Machado, Danny Earls, Robert Berman, Scott Boyan, hopefully that's pronounced somewhat right, Bill DeGeest.
It's Bunyan.
It's Scott Bunyan. He's awesome. You got to people check out Scott's work. He does amazing icons and logos, and I think he even has a comic book coming out. Any hoozles, Andrew J. Brown, my good friend Anthony Digi, who's launching rockets right now. Philip Jean-Pierre, Olga, Macia, Kurt Kroll. He's actually taken this year off from the Kroll series.
No kidding.
Yeah. Everybody needs a break, right?
Well, Game of Thrones kind of was snuck in there for a few episodes, but now we're back to Kroll.
Yep, exactly.
Again.
Yeah, he is also in rehab from exhaustion, I read. So, Steve McKay, and last but definitely not least, our first Patreon ever, Patrick McNerney.
Big Patrick.
Yeah, so Kirby, huh?
Today is Kirby, and for me, I have sort of my beginnings with Kirby weren't all that glamorous in the sense that, when I was a kid and I first started collecting comics, I always, I would pick up a Kirby comic, and to me, I'd already seen Neil Adams and John Byrne and, all of the other artists who were coming up in the 80s. And all of a sudden, to me, Kirby looked, to me, it was awfully sort of quaint and crude and blotchy and scribbly, and it didn't really ignite my imagination because everybody else was drawing so pretty.
I agree. That's how I was. When I was really getting into comics, it was like Leighton and Ditko and these people that had this beautiful brushwork, and then John Buscema and things like that. So, at least I guess I had a similar experience, because when I first saw Kirby, I was like, well, that's weird. And the older I got, the more I appreciated it. However, I think people in that time, obviously is less dated, but they, they had different responses. We were part of a different, the true coming out of the Silver Age into, the most fun age of comics, I think, is when we got into them. So the 80s, right?
When you talk to like Byrne or Paul Smith or guys of that generation, they adored and went to the rack every single month to get anything that Kirby did. They worshipped Kirby the way that we all worshipped Alan Moore and John Byrne and Walt Simonson and Frank Miller. Kirby was that to them.
And that's interesting, that because usually, like, if I look at an Alex Raymond drawing, of course, I think it's beautiful, or Al Williamson. But then I looked at a Kirby, it's just so from another galaxy that my brain didn't want to accept it. And it wasn't like horrified. It was just kind of like it couldn't compute it correctly, I would say, my young mind.
I can remember going to the comic shop with my stepbrother when we were kids, and mocking Kirby comics. Like,
oh, really?
I can draw better than this. Like, what's up with this hand? Or, these women aren't pretty. This anatomy is all wrong. Like, even as kids, we were over it. And then I got my hand on those Son of Origin books. Did you ever read those?
Never have.
So it was basically the first trade paperbacks. Stan Lee used to put out these big tomes that had all the first, appearances of various characters. And he would write a foreword. He'd do a 3 or 4 page bit, leading up to the genesis of the comic book or the creation. And so once I started reading the origin stuff, again, to me it looked very crude to what I was now used to on the rack. You had, like you said, a guy like Bob Layton, people with really nice lines, Terry Austin, Walt
really
Simonson,
elegant.
And then all of a sudden I'm looking at Kirby. I'm like, this is so crude and just splotchy, and the anatomy's all over the place. And it just didn't compute. And then there came a point later when John Byrne was drawing Fantastic Four, and he would homage Kirby. Like, he would draw an issue. He did that issue. It was kind of like the bottle issue where everybody's shrunken down into little bottles.
Yeah.
And that a lot of those pages were drawn in the style of Jack Kirby. So he would occasionally do very Kirby-esque stuff. And I would say, oh, that kind of looks the way that that looks the same as those drawings I used to pick up in the Son of Origins books by Kirby. And then I was able to look back at the Kirby stuff and say, oh, well, if John Byrne thinks it's good, and he kind of makes it look cool, and I started looking more and more at Kirby, and then, over the years as I became more and more an aficionado, now he's not just the king of comics, he's the god of comics, and he's the creator of he's got more IPs than Walt Disney.
Yeah, I kind of ignored him. I kind of vaguely appreciated him just because other people did, when I was younger. But when I was in college, and the professor, I brought up the professor that got me into comics, at least starting my pro career, Tom Biondolillo. He was collecting these Jack Kirby like trading cards that were really popular in the 80s and early 2000s, and or 90s and early 2000s. And they had, all it was all of his drawings like throughout the years, but it wasn't like his Marvel, or DC or anything like that. It was like IPs he made for toy companies and stuff like that. And it'd be like a catfish that fished out of a tree for his enemies or for good. I mean, it was like Catfish Man, and he does a catfish that lived in a tree with a fishing pole, mind you.
There was somebody was telling a story about working in one of the animation studios and didn't realize that Jack Kirby was at the table. They were all just shooting the breeze or coming up with ideas and stuff. He said, there's this guy just sitting at the table, and he had an idea for everything. Like, anytime somebody had the slightest notion of even a kernel of an idea or a concept, Kirby could take it to the nth degree.
The zenith.
I mean, even into his 60s and 70s, the guy had absolutely boundless imagination. He could write a story about anything. I've been going through Jack Kirby quotes today. What a fantastic mind and what a fantastic attitude this guy had. He did judo.
I did read that. Several things. Yeah, he has a lot of fun things as far as him being rough and tumble, is, meeting people down in the office to go crack some skulls. And he was a good old-fashioned rough and tumble dude, it seemed like.
He was.
All the way to the quote where, comics will break your heart, kid, or, which nobody really understands until they make comics, or anybody that is an artist of any ilk that has to work commercially can understand that quote.
They beat Kirby down. I mean, anybody who knows, the history of Jack Kirby with Marvel and with DC, talk about an underappreciated. I mean, not of course the fans appreciated him and other artists appreciated him, but the corporations walked all over the guy.
Of course, yeah. Famously so, taking advantage of true genius that he was. Yeah, you look back at that stuff and it makes absolutely no sense, right? That like, how can you have this, and as you get older, or at least me, I really started appreciating, especially as I became a pro, how the mightiness of old Mr. Kirby. And just a quick little side thing, for how Kirby was treated in the industry. My favorite story ever was by Frank Miller. I believe it was in like Dark Horse Comics Presents, but it was, or something like that. It was a Martha Washington special when she has to go save the super soldier, and his blood is the serum to save the. Basically, it's a metaphor for the comic book industry. And he knows they're using him, and he gives even though he's dying, he gives them the vial of blood anyways. And Martha Washington breaks it and leaves him kind of as a legend. It's a beautiful story if anybody's ever read it. I don't know if you ever got into the Martha Washington stuff, but this is when Kirby died. What Frank Miller kind of an homage to him, and it was basically how the industry, oddly enough, sucked the blood out of him. And I don't know. It's almost, and the story's kind of about how he was almost aware of it. But he grudgingly did it anyhow.
Well, he had bills to pay. He had kids and a family and mortgage, just like everybody else. Yeah, when I was a kid, I took a bus to New York City to go to one of those early New York Comic Cons.
Yeah.
And like, I think my aunt met me there. She was like a hostess at a restaurant in New York, living in New York, and like got me in a cab and got me to the hotel.
Cool.
And I spent the day, it was one of those big hotels, in the late 80s, I guess, or early 90s. And, Simonson was there, and Gene Colan was there, and Kaluta was there, and I believe Mignola was there. I think Adam Hughes was there.
Wow. Young Adam Hughes, huh?
Young Adam Hughes, yeah. But anyways, and so there was an escalator, if memory serves, and I was just standing there, and Kirby, and I feel like there were windows behind it, and he came up the escalator, and the light was coming just at that moment, was coming from behind him. So it was like God was sort of levitating towards me. And by that time, I was old enough to realize his importance.
Yeah.
Of course, I stuck my hand out and introduced myself, and he was really cool, and shook my hand and said something nice to me. I can't remember what his words were. But I mean that was it's kind of cool to think that I got to meet him that time, and I showed my portfolio to Walt Simonson that day. He spent a good 15 minutes just sitting there talking with me.
How cool is that? And now you do his art page, don't you?
I'm one of the admins on his Facebook page. Yeah, and I've got I have some of his artwork up on my wall.
Pretty cool. I have some of his artwork inked by a up and comer named Dan Panosian.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I saw you reveal that beautiful artwork the other day.
Yeah, fancy done on this show.
Well, I'm pumped for Dan's new series. It's called
on Comixology, right?
Yeah, Canary. It's coming out on Comixology, and I was all excited because he started pumping it up on his Facebook page, and so I went straight to Comixology to buy it, and it said coming out in December.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I know he had said when he was talking to us after the show, he just can't wait to announce it. But yeah, I don't know how that stuff works for those announcements on Comixology versus regular comics, but that's not too long to wait. People have to wait till middle of next year for Dead Earth Pioneers.
That's true. We have to learn to be patient to get the things that we want.
Yeah.
But
I'm doing those covers I can't talk about, and that's slowing me down. But I'm starting to finally get caught up, and I can work on Dead Earth almost full time, probably starting next month.
Are you going to try to find a spot to put Jack Kirby's thing in there?
On this?
Yeah.
Do you want a thing bump?
Are you going to insert the thing into your IP? Into Dead Earth Pioneers?
Oh, okay. I thought you needed this drawing. I was going to give him a little lump there for you. Just so you can go to sleep tonight, JC.
Hey, man, my wife's out of town. I got to stay busy.
I got to make my co-host happy. I'm going really heavy-handed with the thing. I did the only time I've ever inked the thing or drawn the thing, I actually didn't ink it. Carl Potts inked it, was for a Spider-Man book. It was like the last frame of the book is Iceman and Spider-Man are trying to get the last 2 seats at the best sushi place in town for their girlfriends. And they basically fight each other the whole book, drag their girlfriends there. They get there at the same time. And the thing is taking both seats up and is eating all the sushi. Yeah. Wait, excuse me?
Was he there with Alicia or just taking up the whole? He was just
taking up both seats, and I guess going to eat all the sushi and then take home one of the geishas or something. I don't know. I don't know how the superhero comic books work. Yeah, it was kind of fun drawing the thing. Oddly enough, I was never a big Fantastic Four fan growing up.
Really?
I was X-Men, Avengers, things like that. I just never really got into Fantastic Four unless something special is happening, and I had to read the series.
So you never read the John Byrne run?
Oh God, no.
Oh, man.
I know I've read a book or two of that actually when I was younger, but never really got into it, man.
Oh, I absolutely loved, when he was doing Fantastic Four and Alpha Flight. That was what I considered peak Byrne.
Yeah.
And there was so much Kirby influence on his. If you look at the robotics, and and the storylines, I mean, even the costumes, he restored everything to the Jack Kirby era.
Cool.
It was, they went back to kind of they weren't the skin tight uniforms, that Keith Pollard and Buscema and Ramita and all of the guys who followed up Kirby had been doing. He took everything back to square one.
Cool.
And that was, for a couple of years there, that was Byrne's absolute peak as a writer and as an artist. Some will argue that his art was better on X-Men. Because of his combining him with it. Terry Austin created, the whole was better than the parts.
Yeah.
And that, brings up another interesting thing about Kirby is how much prettier he looks when he's inked by Joe Sinnott.
That's pretty much the ubiquitous opinion, isn't it?
I mean, I look at those Fantastic Four issues that Sinnott and Kirby drew, and I am convinced that it's the best comic book art ever.
Oh, wow. Cool.
I mean, if you look at the Galactus stories that they did together and the Silver Surfer stories, when those two guys were clicking and those storylines were coming out, I mean, I was looking at
were Zeppelin.
Oh, I mean, people argue about it on the boards. They're like, how dare you? Pure Kirby is the only real Kirby. It should just be his pencils and destroy.
I say good day.
Good day, I say. Good day, sir. But there are a lot of people out there. I mean, Kirby looked best with Sinnott. I mean,
yeah,
it was just.
It's hard to argue, man. Anything other than that, I think, but people will.
Yeah, I mean, it was, and Sinnott stuck around after Kirby was gone and kind of kept that look. He was sort of like
kept that nice chunky energy going.
I mean, think about it. Sinnott was still doing inking FF, into the 90s.
Wow, I didn't even think about that. So I'm thinking about it like you commanded, and wild, huh?
Yeah, and Thor. I mean, I used to see Sinnott quite a bit because he used to come out to the Albany comic conventions in the '80s and '90s when I was a kid. And
Yeah.
I I was again, I mean, he gave me a Silver Surfer sketch, I think, for free. He drew like a Silver Surfer head sketch for me.
Cool.
And he's actually a good draftsman on his own. Joe Sinnott.
Huh.
I think he penciled the Pope, the comic book about the Pope. So you and he both have some religious comics in your.
There we go. Me and Joe Sinnott, like fucking that.
He was a wicked nice dude and just super nice to the fans and taught me how to pronounce Buscema. I was like,
Buscema, you mean?
How do you like inking Buscema? He's like, it's Buscema.
Slap.
No, but Sinnott was a super cool guy. But I mean, he put a sheen on Kirby, really, that sort of, again, it elevated the flavor,
And, we've talked about that a lot before. Harmony is everything, right? It doesn't matter if it's the best and the best put together. It may not work where, I don't know, the alchemy sometimes, for whatever magic reason, the brush energy he had mixed with how he in his own head constructed things and solved shapes, they just had a magic together.
And he also Kirby may have just been at his peak at that time. When the Fantastic Four were getting up around issue 1 or around issue 50 or so. I mean, he was really peaking on that title. And
well, that's definitely, there's probably a lot of variables to your point, right?
Yeah.
A lot of moving targets there that all come together. And it really does seem like all great artists, they eventually either run out of gas or they find a happy summit to create more work on that doesn't tax them as much. It seems like usually. So do you feel Kirby did that? Well, then if you think is FF is his best?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's peak Kirby is once you get into the issue around, into the 50s and 60s of Fantastic Four. For me, that's peak Kirby. Like that I'll stare at all day. I mean, it's just gorgeous. And the storylines too. I mean, the imagination was just bursting off the pages at that point. And it's just also, with the Sinnott inks, it's just pretty to look at. Everett was a good inker on Kirby too. And
that's another guy that inked for a long time, isn't it? I'm pretty certain, if I remember correctly.
There was somebody just recently posted a video about, there was an issue of Excalibur that was penciled by Barry Windsor Smith and inked by Bill Sienkiewicz.
Yes, I believe I own that.
And the cover was by Wozniak.
Yeah, yes, because Wozniak around that time even inked an issue, I believe. Maybe, if I remember correctly, the late 80s run of Excalibur, right?
Yeah. That was there was Galactus was on the cover with his helmet off or something.
Yeah. Oh man, did I used to love that book.
Oh, Alan Davis.
Like the Juggernaut, one of the great covers, Juggernaut, like who is it, Captain Britain with the footprint on his chest or whatever.
Yes. I mean, the Juggernaut is just wandering, off in the background. But I mean, talk about another artistic synergy there. You had Alan Davis and Paul Neary.
Yeah, that's a high octane team right there, man.
That was peak Alan Davis. I mean,
most definitely. And he did a Wolverine one-shot special that was fucking amazing, like Wolverine in Canada partying with Space Yeti or some shit.
Yep. I was talking to Brian Hitch, who's obviously a big Alan Davis acolyte, to say the least. And he cites that as sort of the pinnacle. That issue,
that book,
that art job is sort of the pinnacle. Alan Davis,
I studied that forever because there's wind in it and snow, and Wolverine felt so organic, yet it still had this cartoony liveliness to it. Yeah. That dude's a stud.
He's just another juggernaut. And recently, there was there was an Alan Davis comic that came out recently, and I can't remember who. I mean, Mark Farmer must have been busy. They had some other guy trying to ink. Alan Davis is virtually. You have to be really good to ink him.
Got an elegant brushwork. It's and the key, and then you got to be able to blend your nib work in with that elegant brushwork, and that's not even something I think I can do. You know, not well at least. It takes a special type of classical inker to be able to do that.
You'd really need like, you know, Prime Palmer, or maybe like
Palmer could do it, I bet.
Yeah, I think so. But you know, you'd need somebody, even, you know, somebody in the Neil Adams school almost.
More refined than Neil. Neil is still too sketchy. And though it looks like Neri gets a little sketchy at times, I think it's a little deceiving. His stuff always has an elegant precision to it.
It really does. And that was actually, I think, peak Hitch was when Neri inked Hitch. Easy,
the best Hitch has ever looked.
Because
on Authority and stuff.
Oh, that was awesome.
Shit.
He became even more refined. I mean, they started when he was on the second Ultimates run, and Paul Neri was inking that.
Yeah.
That maybe was Paul Neri's best work as an inker, I think, on that second run of Ultimates.
All those like crazy city shots and stuff of like the ground level shots through the city with the superhero team there, like
insane, and like flawless hatching, like flawless lighting. I mean, it was like Kevin Nolan level precision.
Yeah, that's a good I think comparison there.
I mean, it almost looked like Nolan. It was that precise, but it was almost more free than Nolan. I mean, there was a brushiness to it that Nolan doesn't tend to carry off. So
yeah,
it's sort of interesting that Nolan now is Hitch's inker.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he inks quite a bit of Hitch's stuff now.
I was always curious what Nolan would look like over my pencils, but I think my pencils now become so much just a language for me.
Yeah,
I don't know who would look good inking my stupid shit.
I know who would look good with you.
Uh-oh.
Craig Russell.
Oh, I think Craig. If I tighten up my pencils, I bet Craig could do a killer job on it. They're one of my all-time favorites.
Oh, me too.
We got to see if I can get him on the show with us.
I would love to have him on the show. I used to shoplift his graphic novels when I was a teenager. He was doing like Jungle Book kind of stuff, and he wasn't doing superhero stuff for years. He was doing sort of novelization kind of stuff. And I mean, this was after Elric, I think, but he was just doing all kinds of stuff that was not mainstream, and I just used to stick it under my shirt. And bring
I
it
never
home.
had the balls to steal, man. I grew up in a real military strict family, not terribly strict, but you know what I mean. It's honor, integrity, and I never stole anything, man. I always had friends that shoplifted, and I'd like cry as a kid. If they were going to do it, I'd like run out and get on my bike, and they would like steal something out of the 7-Eleven, like some pop rocks or something. And I'd just cry and skateboard or something, or ride my bike away.
Oh, we used to all do it. My stepbrother.
I'm not a good thief, everyone. Just in case you got to steal something big. Don't invite me to your Ocean's 11's team unless you need a lot of crying for distraction.
No, we were good. We would I had this move where I would go up to the newsstand, and then I would take the comic book and I would quickly roll it up into like a very narrow cylinder and slip it up my sleeve. We called it the vacuum. And that's how I would get my comic books.
Oh, wow.
It was terrible.
Well, at least you give back heavy now, so.
And I was with industry professionals whose name I won't mention.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
You'll have to tell me off air. I'm wildly curious.
Yeah, we used to have a whole routine, and my stepbrother was just he'd cram in the entire run of Jim Starlin Dreadstar.
Yeah, the Secret Wars 2 run.
The entire run. He would take and walk out of the store.
He's just walking out with 2 arms.
They're all boarded up. You know what I mean? They're in great. Everything's like he's fully got a big box, visible in his stomach when he's walking out of the comic book store. We're all like these tiny, skinny little kids with giant trench coats filled with comic books.
It's like 93 degrees out. Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah. Oh my God. That was part of my childhood.
Oh man, I had so many friends that were thieves, and I just could never do it, man. I had actually in high school, I had a whole bunch of degenerate friends in Nebraska, super degenerate friends in Hawaii, but Nebraska is a different breed of degenerate, and their big thing was mailbox baseball.
Of course.
And used to just piss me off. Since I was a kid, I always hated vandalism, man.
Yeah, and I'm not into vandalism either. I never was.
But that was their thing in old Nebraska. Mailbox baseball. I don't know if that's anywhere else. On military bases, that shit don't fly. So you never saw that. So when I started living on civilian places, mailbox baseball just freaked me out, man.
Oh yeah,
that people would do that.
Well, when I was a freshman in college, my father was a professor, and one of his students was this trophy wife. This beautiful blonde woman whose husband was a multimillionaire in Williamstown. I mean, in the town where I live. And so she asked my dad. She said, "Do you know anybody who could come and do some work this summer?" He said, "Yep, my son will do it." Actually, I was at art school. I was at art school, and I came home for the summer. And so I became the pool boy for this super rich family. And, I would mow the lawn. It would take me 2 days to mow the lawn. That's how big a spread they had. On a riding mower, it took me 2 days to mow the lawn. It was absolutely, I mean, this house had been owned by this local industry giant, for years until the industry went under, and then this millionaire bought it. And there was a spoiled rich kid who lived up the street named Kevin. And Kevin decided he was going to mailbox baseball my boss's mailbox. And now the trophy wife, who I'm still friends with, her name's Laura. She's still beautiful. She lives in Hawaii now. They're no longer married. She was like, "What the fuck?" So she built she had a granite or cement or something. I think she actually installed like a $5,000 granite post box, mailbox. And she was like, "Try and smash this motherfucker." But this kid, Kevin, was a vandal. I mean, I dated his sister, and
was it a family of vandals? Like you're a family of horse thieves?
I was terrible to this girl. She was a poor little rich girl, and it got to me one day. I was house sitting for the millionaire whose house I was the pool boy for.
Yeah.
So she was there with me, and we were drunk, and she pulled a little rich girl routine on me, and I pushed her in the pool.
Uh-oh.
We were fully clothed, and that was that. I got in my car and drove away. I just left her. It's a terrible story. And but she and I had been at a party, I think, earlier that week, and the brother came in all drunk, and he was in trouble because he had smashed a window downtown. He was just a vandal. The kid's parents are these multi-millionaires. Now he's a drug addict who just left his wife. And
fun.
I hope he watches this podcast that I know, because they'll know what I'm talking about. He'll
be one of the 12.
It will be. But yeah, if you're gonna mess with mailbox baseball, I mean, people. I've seen people fill their mailboxes with cement. Yeah,
that was the thing that Nebraska, like old Bittermen, would do. And then somebody would like get their arm ripped off.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the only reason.
And I just laugh. Fuck you, vandal.
That's what happens.
You fucking degenerate shit, destroyer of society.
Fuck around and find out.
Yeah, fucker.
Well, that's
Yeah,
why
JC's gonna date you and throw you in the pool, motherfucker.
I threw her in the pool. So fast forward like 20 years, her like sister-in-law is my son's kindergarten teacher. And I also and another story is I beat up her brother later.
Jesus, you just took it to this family, dude.
Well, he started with me. He I think he was mad about the pool. So like 5 years after the pool thing, he like started pushing me at the bar.
He's gonna redeem the sister.
Right, and it didn't. That's not what happened.
Yeah, it didn't go as planned, like in his head.
No, he was on the floor. People were screaming. And then
That's never fun.
No, and so I was afraid that. So meanwhile, the other brother marries my son's kindergarten teacher, and I'm like, oh my god, I beat up the kindergarten teacher's brother-in-law.
This small town shit, man.
Seriously, I'm like, this is going to be like, what have I done to my son? Like now my son has to go to school and his teacher's going to hate him because I beat up her brother-in-law. So
drama in Connecticut, folks. See, that's the great thing about being a military brat. You never have to worry about that shit.
No, you'll never see those people again. You can do
all the people that beat your ass, or I actually want to fight every once in a while. All those fucking people, or you embarrass yourself, pooping your pants, losing a fight, falling downstairs.
It's all there is.
Girls call me stinky nuts. You never have to fucking worry.
Nope. You're just traveling through life like Bill Bixby in the Hulk. Just wandering from town to town. Without a care in the world.
With his stinky Hulk nuts just wandering away.
Another Kirby creation that has yielded probably billions of dollars.
The Hulk we're talking about, people.
How many Hulk action figures have sold? You know what I mean? I had
in my lifetime alone, Marvel's gotten some fucking money from me, man.
I mean, think about it. I mean,
yeah. How many Hulk lunchboxes? How much Hulk underoos? You know, he was my favorite growing up.
Me too.
Because I was a little pussy that got my ass beat a lot, so I had a lot of deep anger, resentment issues. So the Hulk just kind of did them for me.
Oh.
Or did it for me, rather.
I mean, my kids like the Hulk. I mean, my son is 8 years old. Jack Kirby's been dead for I mean, when was Hulk created? 1962?
Early 60s, right? Had to have been.
All that stuff. All of those creations came out in the 60s. All of the IPs came out in the 60s. And now they're, I mean, again, Kirby's bigger than Game of Thrones. You know?
Oh, easily. He created pop culture that's going to be around as long as humanity's around, I think. You know, that's only a few people in history get to do that, you know? I mean, as grandiose as it sounds, think about it, like Homer. People like that, their creations last forever. He's going to be one of those. And maybe even more so, because people aren't, you know, kids aren't going nuts for the Iliad.
Yep.
You know, but you put the Hulk in there with Captain America getting punched in the chest or something, and I don't know. Every kid can identify with one of his creations, I think.
And it's so funny that, you know, nothing else has stuck since, except for like Ninja Turtles, Hellboy. You know what? You know the big lasting comic book IPs were all created by Jack Kirby. You know, other than the
rarest of rare, because you can't even say that about Spawn or something. Even though everybody knows it in comic books, it's not like everybody knows the Hulk or Captain America or Iron Man or Spider-Man. It's not Spider-Man. Obviously, he didn't create, but you know what I'm saying. He has a litany of who's who comic creations that Kirby just had a cigar in his mouth and a cup of coffee, you know, just grinding away.
It's, you know, nothing can capture, for some reason, nothing post Kirby captures the imagination the way Kirby material. Like who's DC's big bad guy? Darkseid.
The Joker?
Well, I mean, the Joker is is Batman's, obviously go-to bad guy, but the big,
Lex Luthor.
Galactic bad guy is Darkseid.
Oh yeah.
And DC never had that. I mean, they've got the Monitor and the Anti-Monitor from Crisis, but nobody talks about those guys
ever.
I mean, I don't know why that is, but I guess they
there's a magic to Marvel characters and hopefulness and things that I don't know. The DC characters, they just bore me. Not all of them, but I mean, there's just a certain magic, and it could be the creators and the creative thrust and the magic and hopefulness of Stan Lee and things like that. I don't know where this sinner, it's like trying to pull the ingredients apart of the ocean. It's too much. Where does it start and begin? But it just seemed like that crew, Stan Lee, Kirby, etc., just a handful of cats. Just, I don't know. They tapped into something in the human spirit or psyche that even children pick up on.
Yeah, it's fun. It's just so funny the way it's just.
Aquaman doesn't do that.
No,
he does it to you, but that's also why you have all the social diseases you have.
Right. Yeah.
Fish herpes, fish gonorrhea.
I just took my herpes.
Whale shank sores. That was a tough one for you.
Well, I walked funny, but I can live with that.
You're a positive man.
Yeah, I can.
I've learned. I have moderate to severe whale shank.
Listen, you can survive with anal leakage. It's not going to kill you.
Yes. Yeah. So just take it.
It's not a fatal problem. But
no, not at all. Just like fissures.
Like, when we were kids, like how many times did Marvel try to recapture all of that? Like, okay, you've seen Spider-Man, now here's Speedball. From the
they just would like throw shit against the wall. Does this stick? Does this stick?
I mean, Solar Man from Stan Lee and Mike Zeck.
Yeah. Man, great reach, man. That was awesome. Forgot about that crap.
The new universe. I mean, Star.
Yeah. Again, it's coming from the wrong place. You know what I mean?
I mean,
it's not pure where the source of wanting to create that versus where Kirby obviously had an electricity inside him that needed to come out, and the expression of comic books for one reason or the other. And it just, I don't know, man. Sometimes there's just magic, and it's more than lightning in the bottle because he did it again and again and again and again.
Exactly. I mean, and Ditko too. You could put Ditko in his category.
Pretty close, right?
Doctor Strange, Spider-Man. I think pound for pound, Spider-Man is the best designed superhero ever. It looks like a clown suit, yet I can't stop looking at it. And whenever I draw it, I make sound effects like a fucking kid, like, there's something about it. It's magic. This is how
it should make sense. It doesn't even make sense, the costume, and it's wonderful.
It is. It's totally sublime. And I mean, just when I was a kid, like in the late 70s, when you were a kid, did you ever get so sick that you had hallucinated? Like in the Pink Floyd song?
No.
Well, I used to get such high fevers that I would hallucinate once in a while.
Wow, bro.
And one night I hallucinated and saw I was probably 3 or 4 years old, and I saw fucking Spider-Man in my room. Crawling
Spider-Man hallucinate. You were the only person I've ever known to hallucinate Spider-Man before.
It was Spider-Man wearing a T-shirt. He was wearing his costume, but he had on like a plain white T-shirt over the costume. That's what I saw. I mean, how powerful an image is that it was sticking in a 4-year-old's
in your
head
childhood fever dream
in the late 70s. I had a Dracula
Yeah.
one too. I had some weird Dracula ones later
And
on.
it's Peter Parker in a Van Halen
Yeah.
1984 T-shirt.
Yeah, that was later on. But I mean, you want to talk about iconic? I mean, for some reason, it just caught the zeitgeist, and I agree.
It's magic.
It's
that design. How do you even come up with it? I'll just draw webs everywhere, and here's an underwear line, and we'll just draw gloves. But it's just like it's just some ayahuasca trip, and they came back with it.
Well, I mean, how weird was his Doctor Strange design? I mean,
all of them like that. To your point, it's like, geez, and not all of them hit. Like, didn't he design like Tigra and stuff? Who cares? Whatever the West Coast Avengers, I can't remember. But
was Tigra a Ditko creation?
I can't remember now, and I'm talking out of school, and I should shut the hell up before fans throw things mailbox baseball me.
Yeah, Tigra was. I always liked her on the West Coast Avengers because she was really slutty. Like,
yeah, I only brought that up because that's when I read the West Coast Avengers, and Iron Man was a full fucking drunk.
Yep.
And like super dark and dark for me as a kid, shall I say.
And those were inked by none other than Joe Sinnott.
Yes, now that you bring it up, I was reading Sinnott Ink comics when I was a youngin. But
Milgram pencils, I believe.
I think that was Al, wasn't it?
Yeah, Al penciled West Coast Avengers, the ongoing series, and but there were some neat, Bob Hall drew the limited series, I believe.
Okay, you're better at this stuff than me, obviously.
Yeah.
And sorry, everyone, if I'm a little spacey today. I'm in the middle of a deep, deep deadline, and this is Zach pretending that he slept. So. Anyhow, carry on, sir.
Well, yeah, I mean, by that time, Kirby was already in Los Angeles, doing animation.
Yeah.
I mean, he did Thundar the Barbarian, like my favorite cartoon as a kid. I don't know if you got Thundar where you lived, but
yeah, I did. Before I moved to Germany as a kid, that was like during the height of all that Hanna-Barbera stuff.
Yes.
And you get that and Space Ghost, and Thundar was definitely one of the gems, right?
Well, that was both Kirby and Toth worked on that series.
That's crazy, man. I knew he did the Thundar stuff. Now that you say it, because I've seen the drawings before.
If you look at the beginning, at the intro, remember that guy Genesis whose head would spin around? Like
yeah.
That is just like the chin has even got the Kirby squiggles on it. Like,
I'll have to go back and look because it's been a spell,
Yeah, it was.
I mostly just see fan art now of Thundar.
Oh yeah, you can go.
Oddly enough, it resonates with other people too, because I see people doing literal fan art of it all the time.
Oh yeah,
not all the time, but it does come up.
That should be a huge IP. I mean, it's so wasted. What a great concept that was, but. And Kirby worked on the Super Friends cartoon. And the Fantastic Four cartoon, which he created. Imagine that. Imagine creating the Fantastic Four.
That one looked just like him. It was like Clutch Cargo Jack Kirby, though, wasn't it?
Well, it's like he had to redraw. He had to simplify his old comic books to translate them for the Hanna-Barbera series. He did all the storyboards. You can buy them.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
God, you live, you learn, man. Thanks. I would love that because I loved, like if you listen to MF Doom and stuff, he would take those old Fantastic Four cartoons and then rap to them. People know that listen to MF Doom, a rip. But it was great. They're just fucking great. Old Iron Man cartoon and stuff or in the Avengers. Man, there's some great whacked out psychedelic stuff back in the day, man. The original Spider-Man cartoon, when they're like rotoscoping them and, flying through the city, used to blow my mind as a kid, man.
Well, that was young Ralph Bakshi.
Yes. And I think I brought up, I own a cell of his artwork now.
From Spider-Man or from?
No, from the greatest of all time, Fire and Ice.
Yes, the Frazetta film.
Yes. I was trying to find that before our art show when you were having to take a short break there. But I didn't find it in time because I don't have it framed yet, sadly. But that's one of my prized possessions. I bought it from his son, actually.
No kidding.
Yeah. His son was nice and repping his artwork. And I was talking to him about how much that film lit up my childhood. I saw it in the military theater in Karlsruhe, Germany. My poor mom took me to it. Can you imagine your mom taking you to Fire and Ice?
Well, it was all. It's just the human body. It's nothing to be ashamed of.
Not at all. That's what Catholic mothers always feel.
Well, I mean, I've told you a million times. My dad took me to see Conan the Barbarian when I was like,
Yeah, we had that bonding, the scarring. Oh, okay, this is normal.
Oh, so the head is going to roll down the end to the bottom of the stairs, and that's the end of the movie. Okay.
So he bangs the witch and throws her into the fire. Dad, tell me the plot point of that.
Well, that was my favorite part. I said, Dad, what is he doing to that girl?
Yeah.
Dad. My dad he kept shushing me. He's like, shh, shh. never revealed what was happening with the witch. But we were actually, my family was at brunch the other day reminiscing about that story. But my dad was a Tolkien guy. He had a Middle Earth drawing on the wall.
Oh, cool.
And used to read The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings stuff to us when we were kids.
Wow. Super cool, man.
Yeah, and he was a big time Tolkien guy, and he had the Alien Guide that was so big in the 70s. Gosh, I'm forgetting the artist now. Wayne Barlow. He had the Barlow Alien Guide, so I would sneak into his office and pull the Barlow book out and stare at all these unbelievably painted aliens that he had in there.
Super cool. I'm starting to enjoy the thing. I think I can work on top of Kirby here.
I think you can too. Let me enlarge the screen so I can get a closer look at it. Oh,
I'm starting to put some detail into them. Some of the rock.
Oh, I love it. Oh, that's awesome.
And I'll come back with some white ink too and really pop out some highlights and gray tone. I don't know if I'll gray tone this. It's looking pretty good, stark. But since we won't finish, do you like my before the show, JC demanded I draw the Thing's thing?
Yes.
So there we got a little thing bulge. What do you think?
Well, I mean, okay, so the Thing was with Alicia Masters, the blind girl.
Yeah. Which was she so blind she didn't know that he had an orange dick, like an orange rock dick, or
like that's.
Does like a rock compartment open up in his regular crank pull like it? I mean, someone's got to make sense to me how he's dating anyone.
I know. Well, then later, Johnny Storm starts dating Alicia. This was towards the end of the Byrne run, and I always just sort of pretended that you didn't read Fantastic Four, so
I know a little vagaries of the history though.
Yeah, Byrne just did a weird left turn, and when they all went to Secret Wars into the Beyond, that Beyonder world. The Thing decided to stay there because he could stay human there.
Yeah.
Something about being on that planet, he made it so that he could stay human. And so while he was gone, Johnny Storm started hooking up with Alicia Masters. And I thought that was total sacrilege. And but then again, so I mean, the Thing is a very shall we say a formidable being, and Johnny Storm is.
You mean romantically?
Right. So
that can't be. That's not level 1 orange dick either. So. He knows how to use it too, I hear. So,
well, I mean,
you're not an astronaut, and you'd not be able to sling it, right?
Right. I mean, if you could fly a rocket ship, please. Alicia Masters is easy.
And then poor Johnny Storm had to come in and.
It reminds me of a story I'll tell you about my friend Paul, the actor. So, for those of you who watch a lot, I have a friend who was an actor in adult films and is an
award-winning actor.
And 2010 Best Actor award winner at the what are those guys?
AVNs?
At the AVNs. So one night he was dating a girl at UMass. He was not going to UMass. He was just living in my apartment, and he was on the rugby team. So he's on the UMass rugby team, but was not a student at UMass.
I'm such a fan of your friend.
And he's just going to practice and playing, and then drinking and going to the bar every night and doing what young people do.
Well, especially ruggers, as you know, I played rugby in college, so
yeah,
it's a special breed of animal, shall we say?
These guys were total animals. I mean, there were fights every night.
Yes,
players could beat us up. It was ridiculous. So one night, one thing leads to another, and his girlfriend and I get back to my place, and nature takes its course. And I'm thinking to myself, oh man, I'm like now I'm really going to be in a pickle, because she's gonna now there's me, there's Paul, like she's not going to know, it's going to create some kind of a problem. And the next morning she was just like, so when's Paul getting back? Like she just immediately, like, there was no awkwardness, there was nothing. I was so afraid she was going to be like in love with me, and it was going to create tension.
She was like, "What's your name again, sir?"
Yeah, I thought there would be a love triangle. Nothing. there was absolutely nothing.
She Johnny Stormed you,
right? So, it's a similar dynamic you'd assume with the Thing.
Yeah, if she's let's say orange size queen, what would that be? Yeah. What should we call an orange flavored size queen? An orange Julius or something?
She's an orange Julius.
She's an orange Julius.
She was crazy. She had this one eyeball that every once in a while it would go. It would wiggle around. But she couldn't control.
I knew a girl like that, not in the same romantic sense, but she'd been struck by lightning. And she's a super serious religious girl. And she was like friends with my girlfriend. Fantastic. And she'd start talking to me really intensely. And when she would get like heated, both her eyes would start just like going like this. And it was really hard. You didn't want to be disrespectful, but your eyes are going fucking kaleidoscope on me while we're talking. And that's usually the prelude, the start of a horror movie. It's weird when you're around somebody and they have like,
they have a behavioral thing that you're not used to.
Well, that's disconcerting, and they can't help it or anything. Right. Because your brain notices the distraction, but you then have to train your brain not to react to it. It would be easier if this girl was even remotely a nice person, but I got over feeling bad about her a long time ago. She is definitely not a nice person. But that being said, yeah. I mean, that's why I like in Goldmember when he's just can't stop obsessing about the mole. Moly. It's hard, man. That's why I like kids. Kids will just point shit out.
Oh, my daughter, like, will be at Walmart, and she'll be like, that man's got a big belly, And I just look at the guy and I say, she's right, she's right about your belly. And the guys will just be like, yeah, the belly's big.
Yeah, that's the great thing about a little girl. They can almost say anything, and society has to kind of eat it, right?
Oh, I mean, it's funny. I was talking to I was watching one of those funny video shows with my old man.
Yeah.
He's a very intuitive, brilliant college professor, and the video was of a very overnourished woman, and she falls into a ditch and can't get out, and so people are trying to help this overnourished woman out of the ditch, and she keeps rolling back into the ditch. They can't get her out. And it's going on and on. And every time she falls in, you've got the audience laughter getting louder and louder. She's just rolling, really like a beach ball. And so I said to my father, I said, why is it more amusing for a person who's so overnourished to be falling into a ditch than just, I guess, an average sized person? I hadn't ever really put any thought into it, but I think that the weight had something to do with why it was considered funny.
It's gotta be, because if you're watching, like when I was a kid, America's Funniest Videos, what's the funniest thing? Like a fat lady trying to like hold her body weight up and swing into the river or something.
Exactly.
And she just like hits 1 foot into the bank, immediately falls, and then rolls down the hill like 13. As long as you know the person's okay, they didn't die, I immediately find it the funniest thing that ever was.
Well, without even taking a pause, my dad said, well, he said, in society, it's very taboo to mention another person's size. You learn at a young age that it's not something that is talked about. In fact, you have to basically pretend it's invisible. Like if you're on a plane and you have to sit down next to somebody who's extremely large or overnourished or well-nourished, however you got to
pretend they're not eating off of their chest.
Yeah. I mean, you have to, you can't mention it in polite society. And he said, so when if a person like that falls down or has an accident or their pants fall down or something crazy happens, all of that pent up tension that you've been holding in, pretending that it doesn't exist, comes out. And so it's even more powerful.
Holy shit. Your dad was a smart motherfucker, dude. My whole life, I've always felt guilt. Like, why do I laugh whenever like a hefty person falls? Like, as soon as my brain knows this person isn't terribly injured, it immediately is funny.
And it's because you have to subjugate. I mean, it's not just that. Like, my best friend growing up had a stutter. And I mean, a really bad stutter.
My cousin had a lisp, so I had a little experience with a person with a speech impediment.
Yeah, and so I mean, we were such good friends that it became like I was so used to it.
Your brain deciphered it and got used to it and everything.
Yeah, like it didn't. But I could, if you're not used to it, it takes
disconcerting at first.
Yeah, but now, like when I'm around stutterers, I have it never seems strange to me.
Yeah, I guess that's how lateral lisps is what my cousin had. And since I was a kid, I got, I didn't know what it was. And my dad had to explain it to me and, all that stuff like that. So I learned about lisps and tongue width and stuff like that. I'm sure your friend that won the award knows tongue widths too, but whether or not he has a lisp.
No, he's extremely erudite. He speaks, I think he speaks 3 or 4 languages.
Oh, wow.
His mother was Swedish off the boat, and his father was Welsh.
Oh, interesting.
But he could speak French because he grew up in Canada, and he could speak Swedish. And I feel like there's another one hiding in there, German or something.
Wow.
Yeah, he was really a smart son of a bitch. And, none of those things. I mean, what really made him good for porno was that he was incredibly good looking. I mean, he was.
Which is rare in porn, right?
He could have been in regular old movie. In fact, he did do some softcore, like Skinamax movies.
Yeah, I think I remember you telling me a great story about that, actually.
Yeah, he played a lawyer in one of them, and he was drilling all of our friends who were lawyers for real, like to get into the head of a lawyer. And he called me up and he's like, who are our lawyer friends? I said, well, call Harrison or call Elder, or, those guys are lawyers now. And he was like, I was like, why don't you just watch a lawyer show? Like watch LA Law. And he's like, dude, he's like, that's not how acting is done. Like he had to put me in my place. Cut
to his movie and it's like, honor, object. And then he has a rip away like pantsuit. Boner out. I'm filing a formal complaint with you, Your Honor.
Yeah, it was the plot twist in that movie was that he was fucking everyone.
Imagine that.
That was the big plot twist. Was that
and he had to research the role.
He was researching. He's gonna be so mad if he watches this.
He just needed to be quiet for 10 minutes and think to research that role.
Well, I mean, if you know any lawyers, they're not that smart. I mean, it's not like lawyers have anything over anybody else.
They're usually diligent and they know what they know really well. But as far as human beings, I've noticed giant blind spots in some of the best lawyer friends I've ever had.
Yeah, I mean, I have very good friends who are lawyers who are terrific people, but in general, they don't. I mean, everybody's so reverent of law of legal scholars, but to me, it's I've never been particularly impressed. But yeah,
being around scientists and biomedical engineers and VR developers and stuff, I normally don't get impressed by lawyers. No. They just seem very certain to me. They don't really seem like they know more.
No.
But they do know what they do know, usually their lanes very well to that point. Like if you got a guy that's a contract lawyer, they usually know their way around pretty well. You don't find a lot of incompetence within their own field, at least in my limited exposure to the wonderful world of working with lawyers.
Well, I think your writer on Charles Soule, didn't you work with him?
You're asking me a She-Hulk question?
Well, I think you drew
You know how many drugs I had to do to get rid of my She-Hulk memories?
Anyways.
And now you just so crassly bring them up flippantly?
I think Charles Soule was a lawyer, and Bill Mantlo, I think, became a lawyer before he had his accident.
Sorry to everyone on the She-Hulk book. I don't mean any disrespect.
So there are a couple lawyers floating around the comic book business.
They're perfect. They probably publish.
Well, Mantlo, created Micronauts and wrote the Hulk and created Guardians of the Galaxy and all kinds of
a lot of those weird wackadoo ones.
He he stole that famous Barry Windsor Smith story about the Hulk being abused.
No, I don't know. Tell me that. I don't know about that one, sir.
Oh, dude. So Barry pitched what is now Monsters book. Just came out now 30 years later.
Stunningly beautiful.
Stunningly beautiful. So I guess Mantlo had a bit of a reputation for snaking.
Swiping.
He was a swipe. He did a little bit of swipe. Well, he was a pretty prolific writer in those days. So he was probably just trying to get any idea that he could get,
hammering checks, meeting deadlines, right?
Exactly. So Shooter, I guess, tossed the Windsor Smith plot into a desk. Mantlo pulls it out, and it became an issue or two of Hulk, illustrated by Mignola, which is the Mignola, which he now, he's wondering now if he's part of a guilty party because he drew the damn thing.
Yeah.
But anyways, it soured Windsor Smith. He was really mad that his story got ganked. His plot, it was about the Hulk being abused, and that story, I guess. I think Peter David ran with it later. Yeah,
I remember actually a little bit about it now, and I was about to bring up Peter David because about the time I met Peter David way long ago at MegaCon, I think that was a salient problem happening.
Oh, really?
I can't remember, or some reason it came up at that show. I have a specific memory because I actually met Peter David to talk about the Hulk. He gave me a compliment on my Hulk, so that's why I remember. It's all about me, folks.
Well, so Mantlo went on with his life, left comics to get his law degree, and then was riding down the street and had some terrible accident on his bicycle.
Yeesh.
And was basically an invalid. He died several years ago, I think.
Wow, I didn't know any of this, man.
Oh yeah, so his brother was his caretaker. Then Guardians of the Galaxy came out while he was still alive, and I think Marvel must have given him a couple of bucks.
Well, good. That's rare for Marvel.
Because he created, I think he created a lot of those characters.
Well, that's unfortunate, man. Bummer.
Well, I mean, it's a happy ending in that, you know, Windsor Smith is now having this huge, you know, career, you know, moment with this monster book that was based on the Hulk story that he'd created all those years ago.
Yeah.
And now it's this sprawling, you know, 300-page epic that's going to win all the awards this year.
Good. So, awards.
I guess it's kind of a happy end. I mean, nobody wants their story ganked, but I mean, I don't think anybody remembers that Bill Manilow story, the child abuse, you know, Hulk child abuse story.
I know I got the book because I collected Hulk then, but I don't remember. I have vague recollections of the story of what was happening or the drama than I actually do, or more salient in that aspect rather than what the actual story was about. So
I liked Mignola's covers. I liked it when Mignola.
That's when I became a fan of him, man. When he was kind of doing that Plug mixed with some European stuff, kind of bubbly stuff.
Yeah, but I thought he always praises Talek, who inked those issues.
Yeah.
But to me, it just never worked for me. There was something about Talek's inks.
They were bubbly too. I think it looked like heavy nib work too. I can't read. I'm vague recollections. I haven't pulled Hulks out in a while, but I just remember them being very bubbly.
Yeah. I mean, I liked it. Like once in a while, Sienkiewicz would ink him, or I think Al Gordon was pretty good with.
Yeah, he's a legit skill set there. But yeah, I'm trying to remember. You're better at that crap than me, and I'm sleep deprived here.
I mean, Wyasek inked Mignola nicely, and especially later when Mignola really started to become Mignola.
Yeah.
I mean, again, you know, going back to Craig Russell inked Mignola beautifully.
Him and who did starts with an N inked the excuse me?
Williamson inked him really nicely on the Foffer and the Grey Mouser.
Oh yeah, Al. Is it Nebras or whatever that inked him on Dracula?
No, that was the guy who used to ink Steve Rude.
Gorgeous nib work, some of the best I've ever seen.
Yeah, it was Nyberg.
It's an N, I think. It starts with an N.
Nyberg.
There you go.
Yeah, Nyberg inked most of Nexus.
Oh, you know what? You're right.
Yeah.
That's with Rude, right?
Yeah. Yep. Nyberg worked with Rude, and then his work on Dracula was excellent.
He had a beautiful line with Mignola's just graphic blacks. I used to study it to try and get better at nib work. That book right there, because the nib work's so precise and you can digest it very easily. If you look at some of my Aliens work, you can tell I was trying to recreate that.
Well, he was just, I mean, that is really some peak Mignola, that Dracula series.
It's when everything seemed to kind of come together for how he made art.
Yes.
How he solved shapes, how he story told, everything.
I mean, there's one panel in there with Dracula's cape, and I don't think a cape had ever been drawn that way before. And his likenesses were unbelievable.
I was always meant to ask him if he what he did. Did he lightbox some face? Because some of them would be dead on, and then of course having hell right now. You well know I'm having drawing when you're drawing likenesses of actors and stuff like that. It's so difficult for a multitude of reasons. But to your point, there's so many that were just like his Keanu Reeves. Whoa.
He drew
Was dead nuts on, right?
Yep. His Anthony Hopkins.
Hopkins was, that face was built for Mignola lines.
Yep.
Yeah, that's something you don't get a lot of. You talk about Mignola as his likenesses, even when he does like Powerpuff Girl pinups. They're always dead nuts on, man.
Yeah, I mean, that even. Have you ever seen when he posts his if he goes to a life drawing class and draws nudes?
Yeah, probably not as much as you have exposure to, but he has posted some online that I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, that was really eye-opening for me because pretty much anybody who's a pretty good draftsman who goes to a life drawing class, they're all going to walk out with a pretty similar drawing, like in the sense that we're all looking at the same thing, drawing the same thing. We've all got charcoal or a crayon, so our illustrations are going to look fairly similar.
Yeah, they're going to be some unifiable, big objects that are very similar to everybody else's, no matter how they're drawn.
And Mignola, when Mignola does life drawings, they look like fucking Mignola drawings. Like the people, like he transforms people into Mignola shapes.
Yeah,
it's just the weirdest thing. I've never seen anything else like it, and that's when it clicked for me that guy is just otherworldly. Like,
genius level talent is genius level. There's a difference between greatness and genius. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And sometimes the genius isn't even aware of, can't delineate it, if that makes sense.
He's just different. He's just different from every other artist. He doesn't draw. Nobody draws like Mike.
Like Mike.
Except for
I could draw like Mike.
Except for Ryan Sook. Ryan Sook can draw like Mike.
He could draw dead nuts like him for a while there. Super nice guy, Ryan Sook.
Who else? On the subject of Sook, who can draw exactly like Mignola and then turn around and draw exactly like Adam Hughes?
Yeah, with some Kevin Nolan slinging in there. Sook's a freak, man. Super nice too. When I was tabling next to him with him and Mignola, he'd like fill these sketchbooks up, and then sell the sketchbooks and then paint the exterior of the sketchbook, and it just seemed like it was almost nothing to him. How he could just. Some people can just fucking draw, man.
he's just freakishly good. I mean, for him, the fact that he can approximate a Mignola, like let's call it a riff, he can do. I mean, when he first started, he was pretty much a dead ringer for Hughes.
No, it was Mignola, then Hughes.
Maybe, Mignola, then Hughes.
Because he got his first jobs as Mignola backup. I believe he was drawing some Lobster Johnson that Mignola then would finish and make it look like him, but he was so close that Mignola could then turn it into his work, if I remember correctly. I was there, and they explained it to me. But I probably killed that memory.
He's
or brain cell.
Yeah, it's once you start looking at that stable of artists that have been in the Mignola verse,
there's some good ones, man.
It's an impressive group of artists. I mean, I was looking at Duncan Fegredo art the other day. Yeah. Actually, he does an unbelievable thing. I was browsing through looking to buy some Fegredo art, and there were some Marvel pages that he had drawn with the Thing and lots of robotics, Fantastic Four stuff with the Thing and Mr. Fantastic and stuff like that. And like I could see like he had put so much thought into the way that he was going to render and portray that character. I mean, it was perfectly in 3 dimensions and not in a way that any other artist had drawn the Thing. like, I mean, John Byrne did a perfect thing, but it was kind of a Kirby riff. It was like
definitely heavy influence homage, but then again, back then you had more style sheets for characters. This is how it kind of looks, you know?
Yeah. I mean, and then, you know, Buscema had his take on the thing, which they all called sort of the teddy bear look.
And I always liked about his was he always pushed that perspective to such, or the foreshortening, the character foreshortening.
Yeah.
There's no one like Buscema that did that on the thing specifically.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He was great. Actually, you know, I like Ron Wilson. I like Ron Wilson's thing too.
So many great takes, huh?
Well, he was a very Kirby-esque artist as well. I mean, if you look
blocky,
his women were dead ringers for Kirby women. You know, his.
I could see that. You're probably right. Oh, my hand's starting to hurt, dude.
Okay.
Sorry, I've been putting in long hours on old Picard. I got to make Paramount happy. Hey, everyone, Zach's beat up today. We're gonna call this quits, okay, JC? And I'm gonna finish this up to post it. I guess in a little bit. But I got to give my hand a rest, everyone. This hand hurts.
I will say a prayer. I'll say a prayer for your hand, and I guess we all know what you've been up to.
Yes. So much chronic masturbation. I am behind on Picard. But you got to see the Picard. I think I got a good cover, everyone. I can't say it's more special than Picard.
No.
It's Picard. The other Picard.
Locutus of Borg.
It's the other Locutus.
All right.
Of Borg.
Well, everybody, thanks for tuning in. We will see you next week with a new episode and a special guest that has yet to be revealed. Take it easy.
We're going to have a guest today, but literally the country has a power outage. So that from this guest, that's how cool this guest is. Other side of the world.
All right. Take it easy, everybody. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye. We love you.